Good morning, ninth grade. How are you? This is Teacher Nariman, and our lesson for today will be Unit 8, Finding Out the Reading Comprehension Text, Human Achievement, Spaceflight. Do you have the curiosity to find out how things work? If I ask you, what is the weather like in the following days? Do you know how the weather forecast works? Do you want to find out? Okay, in our lesson we'll answer it. If I ask you, how can the GPS find your location right now or mine? We will find out how later in our lesson. Okay, what's this? It's a satellite. Do you know how a satellite works? As you can see, any of these human achievements and other were not able to be before the space invasion, or in other words, before the first human flight to the space. Okay, but the most important question here, what is the science that leads us to these achievements? Yes, what is the science that deals with the sun, the moon, the planets and stars? What do we call it? Astronomy. Great. So this is the science that leads us to invade the space, to discover what's going there. Do you know who is the first astronomer? Let's find out with this video. Watch, please.
I'm going to tell you about Galileo Galilei. You may have heard of him. He was a scientist and inventor, and he lived about 500 years ago. Galileo is famous, you could even say infamous, for one of his big ideas in particular, an idea that got him into big trouble. Galileo liked to build gadgets to help him to experiment and to answer scientific questions. He built compasses, thermometers, a pendulum, and a telescope. How did he come up with the telescope? The story goes that two children were rather bored and they were messing about in a shop that made glasses. They discovered that if they held two lenses in a line and looked through them, they could see a wind vane that was on top of a church steeple far away, and it looked as though it was right outside their window. When Galileo heard about this, he was very excited. He began to experiment with lenses, and he discovered that when he pointed his gadget with lenses towards the stars at night, he could see the moon and the planets in great detail. Galileo saw things through his telescope that no one else had seen. He was the first person to see the planets looking as though they're up close, and he could see some stars that no one had seen before. Galileo saw patterns of light and shadows on the moon's surface. He worked out that the moon was rough and uneven. He even had a guess at how high some of the moon's mountains might be. Galileo also discovered 4 large moons orbiting Jupiter, and they're now named Galilean moons in his honor.
So the first known astronomer was Galileo, who had developed the telescope of the young inventors, Henry and Lagrange. Do you remember the kids playing with lens? And with this developed telescope, he gave us a lot of facts and questions to search. After that, scientists tried to launch a plane into the space. Till Newton came with his cannon. Let's see the principle of the cannon that helped humanity to enter the space.
First law of motion, he knew the cannonball would travel in a straight line at a constant speed forever. But gravity pulls the ball downward. If its speed is low, the cannonball hits the earth near the mountain. The higher the speed, the farther away the ball lands.
If you throw it faster, it comes farther away. Even faster, farther away. Even faster, it may go 1,000 miles. Even farther, it may actually go almost halfway around the earth and there hit the earth.
You can imagine that if its speed were high enough, the cannonball would travel all the way around the Earth and settle into orbit.
The orbit of the cannonball around the Earth was a balancing act between the cannonball's tendency to fly off in a straight line and its being yanked back towards the center of the Earth continuously by the force of gravity.
So, from Newton's cannon, scientists succeeded to send thousands of space flight tests to discover the outer space before the first human to leave the Earth's atmosphere. You know, 70 years ago, the world suffered from the Second War, and the great powers of that time, the United States of America and the Soviet Union, were racing to be the first in space. For political reasons, of course. For spying, for controlling the whole world. They sent different kinds of animals first for these flights, such as dogs, cats, monkeys, frogs, even flies. Let's see some of these flights.
Acceleration after takeoff subjects the device to 4G, or 4 times the normal pull of gravity.
This is the dog Leica. It had been trained to live in a special container.
As you have seen, animals continue to play a crucial role in space exploration till the Soviet Union won the race by Yuri Gagarin. Let's see how.
Yuri Gagarin, first man in space, 12th of April, 1961. Yuri Gagarin was born near Moscow, Russia, on March 9, 1934, and was the son of a carpenter. Yuri joined the Soviet Air Force in 1955, and by 1959, he was training to become a cosmonaut. In 1960, Gagarin was selected along with 19 other candidates for the Vostok 1 program. Eventually, the program was narrowed down to 2 possible candidates. Gagarin and German Titov both had excellent performance in their training and were short enough to fit in the Vostok cockpit. Gagarin was perhaps selected because of his modest background, which suited Soviet Union propaganda, but also because the other candidates voted for him. His excellent memory skills, fast reactions, and mathematical skills. At age 27, on the morning of 12th of April, 1961, cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin was helped into his spacesuit and made his way to the launch pad. He climbed into the Vostok spacecraft, wondering if he would return back to Earth, but was calm. At 9:07 a.m. Moscow time, as the engines rumbled, Gagarin said, "Let's go." The rockets blasted off into space, and in 10 minutes, the Vostok spacecraft separated from the launch rocket. Gagarin was in space. He crossed the Atlantic Ocean, then the Pacific Ocean, and as his spacecraft passed over Africa, he prepared to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, which would not be easy. He had orbited Earth for 108 minutes during the flight. As he made re-entry, the cables joining the Vostok's descent module to the service module failed to detach properly, almost causing disaster as it violently shook Gagarin, until they eventually pulled apart. As he re-entered Earth's atmosphere, he experienced forces up to 8 times the pull of gravity, but remained conscious. Because the Vostok spacecraft had no engines to slow down its re-entry upon landing, Gagarin had to eject out and parachute to Earth. He landed safely near the Volga River. Yuri Gagarin was made a national hero of the Soviet Union and became a global celebrity. He died on March 27, 1968, during an accident in a military training flight.
So, Yuri Gagarin was the first astronaut to reach the space. But, do you think that this is the end of the story? That's it? No, They insisted to send more and more astronauts and cosmonauts to the space. But this time it's a woman. Let's see who is she.
Just 34 years old.
«Восток-6». На его борту Валентина Терешкова, первая в мире женщина-космонавт, советская женщина, достойная дочь нашего героического народа.
So, the first woman into space was Valentina Tereshkova. After that, in 1969, the Americans succeeded to send their first journey to the moon this time. The astronaut was Neil Armstrong. Let's listen to his.
Neil was picked to fly the spaceship that flew to the moon.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff.
While the ship was landing, something bad happened, and Neil had to fly it down to the moon himself. It was scary, but Neil kept his cool and landed the spaceship safely. After they landed, Neil was the first person to step onto the moon. These are the words he said.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Millions of people all over the world watched as Neil stepped onto the moon and put an American flag there. Neil's footprint is still on the moon today because there is no wind on the moon to blow it away.
Now, I want from you girls to open your students' book pages number 84 and 85. Go ahead, please. Yes, as you can see in these two pages, we have the text with its illustration and its pictures. But first of all, I want from you to concentrate and focus on the first paragraph that we are going to discuss. Listen, please.
Human achievement. Spaceflight. Spaceflight testing. The first living creatures in space were flies. They were sent by the USA to the edge of space in a rocket in 1947 and were recovered alive. A succession of test flights involving animals came after, including dogs, cats, monkeys, chimpanzees, guinea pigs, frogs, tortoises, rats, and various fish. Unfortunately, not all came back alive.
Okay, now I want from you to read this paragraph silently to answer these questions. Yes, go ahead, please. Question number 1. Name animals that have been sent into space. Yes. Flies, dogs, cats, monkeys, chimpanzees, guinea pigs, frogs, tortoises, rats, and various fish. Do you remember animals in the video, right? Most of them. We saw their real journeys. Okay, number 2. Which animals were first in space? Yes. Flies, bravo. Number 3. When was the first rocket sent to the edge of the space? In 1947. Good. Number 4. Did all animals sent into space come back alive? No, not all of them came alive. Now find out. I want from you a gerund. Yes. Living. Number 2. An adverb. Yes. Unfortunately. A passive verb. Were sent, were recovered. Number 4. The synonym of get back is recover. Okay. Now, I want from you to read the paragraph again, answer these questions by yourself, and check any difficult vocabulary. Okay? Now, paragraph 2. Listen, please.
First human space flights.
Russian cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin was the first man in space, and he orbited Earth on the 12th of April 1961. The first woman in space was Russian cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova on the 16th of June 1963. The first man on the moon was USA astronaut Neil Armstrong in 1969.
These are the space flights that we talked about in the video. You remember? Okay. Give me a word from the text which means astronaut. Yes. It's the Russian word cosmonaut. Okay? Please read the paragraph again to answer the following questions. Number 1. Who were the first man and woman in space? Where they came from? Yes. Yuri Gagarin and Valentina Tereshkova. They come from Russia. Number 2. Who was the first man on the moon and when? The American astronaut Neil Armstrong in 1969. Number 3. The pronoun he refers to Yuri Gagarin. Find out a past simple verb. Yes, was. Number 3. A word that means astronaut. Yes. Do you remember? Cosmonaut. That's it for today. Thank you. I want from you to rewatch the video again, to do the questions yourself. Check your dictionary for unfamiliar vocabulary. Contact me for any questions. You're welcome anytime. Thank you.